Hey everyone, and welcome to Sintra or Bust, our deep dive exploration of the best that Portugal has to offer. Our intrepid team of three, Mike, Steve, and me, the Max Rider, are setting out from Porto, where we just spent the past few days in the lap of luxury at the Axis Porto Spa Hotel. The city break in Porto, though, is over, and this morning, Mike and I had left our wives heading for the airport, hopefully destined for a quick and comfortable journey home. It was time to get on with the tour, and the next phase will take us from Porto down to Lisbon. Today's adventure takes us three lads into the Portuguese foothills and to an unusual tourist attraction. We set off with the weather being somewhat undecided and headed for the northern or right bank entrance to the Arouca bridge. The Arouca 516 bridge was, until recently, the longest pedestrian suspension bridge in the world. As its name suggests, it's 516 metres long. Well worth a visit then. Sometimes doing a bit of research beforehand really pays off. The only designated parking spaces available for the bridge involved quite a walk. As part of my route planning though, I found a few spaces right next to a cemetery, and this shortened our walk considerably. Being a Sunday, I'd expected even these to be busy, but we found a slot easily, changed into our walking gear and set off for the bridge, about 1 kilometre away. I checked the walk on Google Maps and it said that the terrain was pretty much flat. It lied. Sure enough, the start and end points of our walk were at roughly equal heights. However, Google had failed to mention that we had to walk quite a way downhill and then back uphill for the bridge. I'll remember that for next time. And so to the Arouca 516 bridge, which is indeed an impressive structure. It's made up of an array of steel cages fastened together in a line and held up by cables along its length. The mainstay cables are buried deep into sizable concrete blocks at each end, which is quite reassuring. Visitor numbers are limited and you have to pre-book a specific time slot. Progress along the bridge is quite easy, although the sections do move about a bit, which means you have to take care with your footing. Check out our Steve and his new stealthy walking style. I'm not sure whether that was to keep the camera still or to stop him falling over the edge. The outlook to either side is truly impressive, not to mention the view afforded by looking straight down through the mesh of the floor. The Arouca 516 may no longer be the longest pedestrian suspension bridge in the world. That belongs to a newer bridge in the Czech Republic. The new bridge is 700 metres long. However, it's only 90 metres above the deck, whereas our bridge was 175, and you felt every metre of it. The southern or left bank of the bridge is linked to the Paiva walkways, an 8-kilometre stretch of wooden floorboarding running along the scenic River Paiva. Somewhat surprisingly, this bridge has no actual purpose other than to go there and back again. It doesn't lead anywhere specifically, it's just a tourist attraction. Also surprising is the fact that it's pretty much paid for itself within 3 years.
Somewhere in the middle.
I guess in addition to generating tourist revenues, it's a flag-waving testament to the ingenuity of Portuguese engineering. We didn't have time to take in the walkways, so ours was a return journey along the bridge and then back to the bikes. And of course, this meant going up and downhill all over again. On our way back, we found ourselves at a fine dining establishment in the woods. Actually, the grub was much better than you'd guess from the surroundings.
89 kilometres.
After a quick break for lunch, we set off again, inevitably uphill, stopping only to admire the scenery and local wildlife.
Definitely others.
I'm not actually sure whether the guys were interested in this or just in taking a break. and they did seem to be intensely interested in meteorological events.
Got a lot of cloud cover about, isn't there?
Once back to the bikes, we changed into our riding gear and set off towards our hotel. Our plan was to follow a meandering road around the base of the most hilly section on the way. However, fate and the girls had other ideas. A message sent by my wife popped up on my display. I saw enough to pull the team over for a moment so we could take stock. It turned out that the girls' flight home had been summarily cancelled.
We're having a problem. He's hoping it's a mistake.
Mike had made the flight booking, and only he could rebook it. We were already behind the pitch, as others had already started making alternative arrangements. Mike decided that he needed to make the changes at our hotel, so I altered the route to find the quickest way back. It was pretty much a straight line from where we were.
There's a problem with their flight.
What I hadn't realised in making these hasty changes was that the straight line took us immediately upwards into the cloud layer. The mist wasn't too bad at first, and we were all concentrating on our task of getting to the hotel quickly, or at least as quickly as the conditions would allow. However, soon the mist started to get a little thicker, and this led to a fun moment between Steve and the cow that had presumably forgotten its reflective gear.
Oh, sorry. Oh, fuck. I was so glad I recorded that. Oh, God.
It's amazing what you find amusing on a bike tour. Once away from the high ground and clear of the fog, we had an enjoyable ride down to our hotel. Let's take a moment or two to enjoy the scenery and the bends.
In, I would do.
No sooner had we arrived than Mike set about rebooking the flights. By this stage, Mike's wife, some of her family members, and indeed our Steve, had found a flight home with British Airways, leaving the next morning. Mike, however, chose an alternative route and booked the girls on a flight with EasyJet, leaving in 3 days' time.
Yeah. You know how it feels?
He then sent them a message asking them to find a cheap hotel next to the airport to wait out the 3 days. Their response was short and sweet. Just a photo, but one that demonstrated a strong tendency towards independent thought. If you look carefully at their napkin, you'll see it's from the Axis Porto Spa Hotel. That's the posh one that we'd left earlier in the morning. A second image arrived courtesy of my wife, which explained their take on the situation. With the accommodation and flight arrangements having been settled, we set out to find a place to eat in the village and then get our heads down, ready for the next exciting riding day. As the evening drew to a close, I received a final message from my wife, another photo. It was good to know that the girls were safe and comfortable, although we were going to have to settle a fairly hefty wine bill. Join us next time when we make our way down towards Lisbon, stopping off at an underground lair.